Welcome to the Down There Where podcast. I'm Amy Milne. This is the show where we get loud about women's below-the-belt health from menstruation to menopause and everything in between. So many women continue to silently endure issues like endometriosis, PCOS, menstrual disorders, and menopause-related challenges without the proper support. We're done with the whispers. We're here to break the taboos, share the stories, and have the conversations no matter how uncomfortable. Whether you're dealing with your own health journey, supporting someone who is, or just ready to join the movement, you're in the right place. Let's get loud. Here's something you don't see every day. A man who walked into the menopause conversation, decided to stay, and built his life's work around it. My guest today is Simon Salt, speaker, writer, certified menopause coach, and creator of The Quiet Transition, where he teaches men how to actually show up for the women in their lives at home and at work through the menopause transition. And yes, Simon is our very first male guest, a man talking to us about menopause. I'm a little obsessed. His story doesn't start in a textbook. It starts about 8 years ago, watching his wife get dismissed by doctor after doctor, told it was aging, told it was stress, told her labs were normal. 4 years of that. And like so many partners, Simon quietly made it about himself. Am I the problem? Is she still attracted to me? Until the day it clicked. This wasn't happening to him. It was happening to them. What he's built since is something almost nobody else is doing, translating this transition for men. Not a list of symptoms, but the impact. Here's a line that stopped me cold. Women research their symptoms, men research the change in their relationship. Same event, two entirely different conversations. We get into all of it, the invisible mental load, the unmasking, his sit, listen, believe framework, and why male voices might be one of our most underused tool for change. For the women who can't find the words, for the partner who's afraid to say the wrong thing, this one's for both of you. This is the Down There Where podcast. I'm Amy Milne. Let's get loud. So with that, I am excited to welcome Simon to the show. Simon, welcome.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for having me. I'm Simon Salt. I am a speaker, writer, creator of The Quiet Transition, where I write for men on how they can best support the women in their lives, whether that's personal or professional, through the menopause transition. And I'm a certified menopause coach.
I love it. When those who listen along know that I like to stalk, but in a friendly way, stalk people. And I found you online, and I am just so interested in all the people that are here, in the fight, in the journey, and all the things that we're doing to better women's health and an understanding. And coming across you being a man in the menopause space just blew my mind. And so I'm so excited to jump in to this conversation today. And I know by the end of it, and people listening are just going to also have their minds blown and be so much better for it. So, Simon, how does a gentleman like yourself get into menopause?
So my journey starts 8 years ago when my wife went into perimenopause. And we went through 4 years of what can only be described as hell.
Wow.
Where she was dismissed by 4 successive doctors, told that it was aging, told that it was diet, told it was lack of exercise, told that it was repeated UTIs, told it was yeast infections, all of the things that dismissed her. And obviously the age-old favorite, your labs are normal.
Right. Exactly. Because that's the easiest thing to tell someone.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but our relationship was changing dramatically. The biggest change, of course, was intimacy, both physical and emotional. And so I actually, I think it's common amongst men, I personalized. Because if it's not about her,
right,
and the relationship is changing and her meds are normal and the doctors say there's nothing wrong with her, it must be me.
Right.
That's changing the relationship. So what is it? What am I not doing? What am I doing? What am I not saying? What am I saying? Is it just me generally Has
Right.
she
Right.
no longer attracted to me? Is
Mhm.
it something that I'm not fulfilling within her? All of these different things that end up centering, and this is one of the things I come back to a lot in these conversations, is women are taught to center men in society, or certainly in Western society.
Mhm.
Women are meant to be in the male orbit. That's just the
Right.
way culture sets us up. And so
Mhm.
men typically will center themselves because that's the way they're taught.
Mhm.
They're at the center of whatever's going on. We're also taught to be fixers and solution providers. And you can't fix something that isn't broken. She's not broken.
Right.
You can't provide a solution for something that isn't a problem. So where do you
Right.
go? So you also suffer this loss of identity.
Wow.
If if this isn't my role anymore,
Right.
then what is my role in this relationship? What am I supposed to do here? What's the
Mhm.
value I bring? If I'm not fixing things, I'm not providing solutions, what do I do?
Right. Right.
Um, and then so we went through those 4 years of total dismissal. Finally, she found a doctor who said, "Oh yeah, this is perimenopause." That was really the first we had heard of it.
Wow.
That was and my wife's a researcher,
Right.
so she digs in on these
Right.
things. And so she did. She started to dig in and find out, well, what is perimenopause?
Mhm.
What does this all mean? How does that relate to the symptoms I'm having?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I didn't at the time.
Right.
I was still at that stage of, okay, well, now you have a word, you have a
Right.
list of symptoms. What's that got to do with me? How
Mm.
does that impact me? So I was
Right.
still personalizing and internalizing.
Right.
And we hit a turning point in our relationship, and it just snapped for me
Mm.
that this wasn't about me.
Hmm.
This was her experience and my experience together. And we were having two different experiences of the
Mhm.
same situation.
Mhm.
I was experiencing it my way. She was experiencing her way. What we weren't doing was communicating about how those two things could come together.
Mhm. Right.
And so I guess 18 months ago, I started to dig in on my own and do my
Mm.
own research and found that there's lots of information. If you look for it,
Right.
there's information. Doesn't get out to many women yet,
Mm-mm.
but there is information there if you dig for it. But very little of it is phrased and framed for men.
Mhm.
It's either medical and clinical,
Right.
or it's written by women for women, which is
Right.
obviously as it should be.
Right. Of
They're the
course. Of
people
course. Of course.
experiencing it.
Of course. Yeah. No judgment. Like that's where
But
we're at. Right. I mean.
yeah, but there isn't a way for men
Mhm.
easily to translate that unless they're spending the time in the space
Right.
and consuming a lot of it, which I do,
Right.
to then say, okay, how does it impact how I see my relationship? How
Right.
does it impact what I'm doing? Um, and it's to move them, my work, I see it as to move them from not knowing anything to having a list of symptoms to actually experiencing what those symptoms mean
Right.
for the person in front of them.
Right. And it's so awesome. I'm so grateful for your work, and just to even start the conversation as a man on the side of all of this. Like my story, for anyone who's listened already, my husband was a big part of the reason I was diagnosed with endometriosis. And so he lived, Eric lived this insane journey with me over the years of my poor health, to a hysterectomy, to then, like one day you're here and the next day you're in full blown, menopause. And so the journey Eric has lived, and there was so much during that time that was obviously all about me and my health, because it was the part that was failing. But he was along for the ride. And there was, the way you just spoke of what your experience was while your best friend, partner, lover was going through all this stuff. Like, you are part of that relationship, and your needs weren't being met either. And there were no words for it before. Like, if I think of some of the arguments and conflict that Eric and I experienced around intimacy, one, I dealt with pain because of endometriosis, but then, like, through this whole, surgical menopause journey, again, am I broken? And, and his, like, are you not attracted to me anymore? And then the hormone balance of, all that being out of whack. And no, it's not that I don't want you. I don't want me. I don't want anyone. But there hasn't been a place for the conversation about what's happening for you. And as I was listening to you, it made me think, I like to equate things to things of like the caregiver and the person going through an illness, right? Like I had to take care of my mom when she had cancer. And so everybody was all about my mom. And so they should be. But as a caregiver, my role had changed. I was no longer a daughter. I was a nurse. I was, a Uber driver to appointments. And so there's a shift in identity. And if you don't know, like this whole, man dealing with partner, women in lives of this space, if we don't know enough about what's happening to us, how the hell do you guys know what's happening to you for your partner? Right? In your basic needs, like you said, men fix things. That's innate.
Yeah.
That's innate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you bring up a good point there about needs being met. And I think that's part of the adjustment for both people. It's how do I meet my partner's needs now? And that's a conversation that both people have to have. So they have to redress, what are my needs? Because until you understand what those needs are,
right,
they can't be met.
No.
And so I think it's really important that we focus on what are the new needs for the partner, the woman that's experiencing this, as well as what are the needs that the man now feels he is not getting met, and how can those needs be met in different ways.
Right.
So for example, one of the things that I bring up with men is, you need a hug.
Right.
She's having a hot flash. The last thing you're going to get is a hug.
Right.
Because
literally when you're boiling from the inside out, the last thing you probably need a hug, but that's the last thing you need, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And that could come right at the moment where you come home from a really bad day. And you need to let it out. You need to vent, and you need a hug, and you need comforting. And you're not going to get that. Not in that moment.
Right.
And that's part of this adjustment of, okay, I'm still wanted, I'm still loved. Right at the moment is not the time when it can be expressed. But that doesn't mean it's gone away.
Right.
And it's that adjustment in how your needs are met and when they're met. And I think that's really important adjustment for both people in the relationship to make. It's, and one of the things we talk about with the drop in estrogen and is the unmasking, women's unmasking, where they decide, where their biology decides they're not going to put up with stuff anymore. That things that have worn them down over the years are no longer going to be accepted. And suddenly a male partner is presented with, but you've always done those. Why were those not an issue before? Like the last 20 years, why was that not an issue? And now suddenly you're telling me I don't do enough.
Right.
And that can come as a shock, because
for sure
that partner may have felt they were an active partner in the relationship.
Right.
And what they didn't realize was the emotional and mental load that their partner was carrying, especially in running a household. And it's all that invisible labor that happens, that men are often not aware of. And not because they're stupid, not because they're uncaring, they're just not aware of it. These things just happen. And they've always just happened. And maybe when they were growing up as a boy, as a young man, these things just happened as well.
Right.
They grew up in a household where these things just happened. And they get to that point where that's not just going to happen anymore. And they need to pick up, and that's an adjustment as well. They need to pick up some of that emotional and mental labor that their partner now needs to set down. And not only needs to, but is not going to do anymore.
Right. Like literally we're out.
Yeah, exactly. Nope. That's not me
It
anymore.
is no
If I
longer on
never
my other duties as assigned.
Right, exactly. And you know this one that I come back to a lot for women is what's for dinner?
Mm,
That age-old question. And they don't want to answer that question anymore.
right.
They don't. And so somebody else has to answer that question. And
Right.
maybe that's a division of labor across
Hmm.
people. Maybe there are children in the house.
Right.
Maybe it's time for them to step up as well
Right.
as dad
Hmm.
stepping up. So there's a lot that goes on in this adjustment of
Hmm.
duties of adjustment of getting needs met,
Hmm.
because suddenly, from the male perspective, suddenly
Yes.
your partner has new needs.
Right.
They haven't got new needs. They've always had those needs. They just didn't express them because they were
Right.
masking. Now
Right.
they're expressing them because they're not masking anymore.
Right.
And I think that's really important. One of the ones I use an example with men is you say you help, you go grocery shopping. That's great. That's a good help. That is significant and that's good. And that's a piece of physical labor that you can take on.
Yeah.
But did you check the pantry? Did you check the refrigerator? Did you meal plan? Did you check things like laundry detergent?
Right.
All of those other things that end up on the shopping list that you then take to the grocery store.
Right.
That's the emotional labor, the mental labor
Hmm.
piece that you're not kind of catching up with, that you
Right.
need to catch up with, that it expands. So that one job you were doing, which is great that you were doing that, has to expand.
Right.
It's a
Right.
bigger job than you were first seeing. Even if you've been grocery shopping for years,
Right.
you probably weren't doing that other piece, or maybe you were doing
Right.
it together.
Right. Well, in my household, we have my husband is the cook, and so I've always been lucky on that. My kids, he's a firefighter, so when he goes to work, he's gone for 24 hours. So my kids love it because I mean, I know how to cook. I've always enjoyed cooking. Eric just he loves it and he's good at it, and we're so grateful for it. But the kids love it when he goes to work because I'm not interested in making dinner. Like it's actually not a part of my schedule. And so I can understand that. So we eat out or we get sushi, which Eric doesn't like. So it all works out. But it's this transfer. It's like this evolution. Like I love the word evolution. And I think what's happened is this evolution has been happening for years because we're humans and we evolve, no new thought. But there was like this quiet evolution that we as women couldn't put words to. And so like all I could think of when you were speaking is, that midlife crisis moment where, traditionally like men went out and bought themselves a sports car and traded in their wives for someone younger. And like, no shit, because basically, and I'm not saying that that's okay, but we didn't have this point in this meeting. Like if we think of midlife, that's when women's lives are changing in such a way that we haven't had language for. So if we
Mhm.
don't have language for it and we don't even understand it, because I remember the day where I was like, I don't feel like myself. And how do you explain that to someone? Like until we're, where we are today, which it's further ahead, but we're nowhere near where we need to be.
Mm.
But all of a sudden you just don't feel like yourself one day, but yet you're supposed to keep doing the same things and showing up, and you have literally no control over the things that are happening in your body. And yet we're supposed to still show up as the wives and the partners and the friends and the coworkers and the colleagues. And like you said, do the things we did before, but we may not find joy in them. We may not be able to get out of bed. We may be in pain. We may be not in pain, like all the things. And then our partners, uh, again, not fair enough. I don't have the right words for it, but all of a sudden you're like, I can't live here anymore because to your point too, like what is innate in nature to care for? If you can no longer care for me, what's my role? And so to be able to, give language for both sides of this is, I mean, we know divorce is prevalent at this age and stage in our lives. Maybe this will change for people as we educate each other and are empathetic to one another. And again, I love that like you're here taking care of and helping men so that because we still got to do our stuff over here, but it is this huge role evolution.
It is.
Um, and everybody manages it differently, right? I've got some friends who are like, I don't understand this menopause or perimenopause thing. Like, I'm doing fine. And then I've got others who like can't get out of bed and like, oh my God, my partner doesn't, I don't know if I even like my partner. I don't even know if I want to stay married to my partner. My partner doesn't understand me. Like, it's pretty common language that we're all experiencing, but for so long we've kept it to ourselves. And I would say, which is why I'm so grateful we're having this conversation and for the work that you're doing, because not only do we not have the language, but like we need people like you to be educating our partners and our male counterparts so that you can be doing it so we can do our thing and then we can come together, right? Because we have to care for we have to care for ourselves physiologically and emotionally. Like there's so much where it's an adaptation of role for our male counterparts in education. And if you don't, like, why did you go down the rabbit hole? Why did you decide you wanted, like, what was that calling to be like, I want to understand this and help people?
Basically because I'd been so confused and so distant, and I needed to find a way back. You know, it was very much a make or break situation for our relationship.
Right.
I didn't want to break the relationship.
Right.
I wasn't interested in buying a sports car or trading her in for a younger model.
Right. You loved her.
Now,
You love her.
yeah, yeah. So, and I'm a voracious reader. So reading was my thing.
Okay.
And so I wanted to know. I wanted to know. And to be fair, she was very helpful at the beginning in sending me articles. Here, read this. Maybe this will help. As she was coming across them and learning,
Right.
she would send them to me. Interesting enough, I now send things to her.
Yes, I love that though. But that's so great because you've created a conversation where, again, like I equate it, I know that this episode will go, if nowhere else, to every single one of my friends and their partners. Like, you know, I might as well say hi to, you know, Steven and Bob and RJ, like, because I know my partners are going to be listening to this because there's not enough out there. And even just to start the conversation, like that's not even happening in some relationships that I know, not the ones I mentioned, but like there are women who are like, how do I even send my husband this? Like, I don't even know if this is me. Like how do you even start that conversation in terms of sending information?
So I think it's interesting. And I occasionally will throw up stats, and these are US based.
Yeah.
But there's a survey that was done of men's attitudes towards menopause transition. 73% of men said they were involved in these conversations. 73% of women said they had to start them. So men don't typically initiate these conversations, even if they have the information. And part of that is fear.
Right.
They're afraid of saying the wrong things at the wrong time, or doing the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Fair.
And so there's a fear that has to be overcome. And it's not going to be overcome if both partners stay silent.
Right.
So at some point, somebody has to feel brave enough to initiate this conversation. And I come up with a framework that I use with people is sit, listen, believe. So sit down and set aside time. Don't do this over dinner. Don't do this during chores. Don't do it driving the kids to school. Actually sit down and set aside time where you're alone. And so that you can spend time doing this. And put it time bound. We're going to sit down for 5 minutes. We're going to sit down for 10 minutes.
I love that.
I had a really good conversation the other day with Natalie Haya, who said when you time bound it, it reduces the fight or flight response in a man. When you say to a man, we need to talk, immediately his fight or flight response will kick in. And he's either going to respond with a fight instinct, or he's going to flight. He's going to pull away. One of those two things is going to happen. If you say, can we talk for 5 minutes? Now he knows, okay, 5 minutes. I can live through 5 minutes. So that's that sit piece. The listen piece, and this is true for both partners, but especially for men. Listen to what your partner is saying. Don't just wait for your turn to talk.
Mm.
And then the last part is the believe. And this is especially true for men who have started to educate themselves. So maybe they've now got a list of symptoms. They know what a hot flash is.
Right.
They may even have done enough digging to figure out what the biological reason behind it is.
Right.
That none of that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to what your partner is saying, because it's her lived experience that's going to be your best education.
Right.
Because a hot flash for her is going to be very different for a hot flash from some other woman, or something you've read online, or TikTok influencer. These are not the same people. The person that you're most interested in is the woman in front of you, and listen to her lived experience. And I give an example of this. I'm a yoga teacher.
Cool.
When my wife has hot flashes, she doesn't have them all the time, but when she does have them, typically they happen in the mornings.
Okay.
I know not to invite her to a yoga class first thing in the morning. Adaptation. I listen to her. I understand her lived experience. I know what a hot flash is. I understand the biology behind it. Irrelevant if I don't understand how it impacts her. And I've written about this. Women research symptoms. They want to know about their symptoms. What is this meaning for me? Why do I wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning?
Right.
That's symptom research. Men research impact. Why is my wife changing? Why isn't it the way she used to be? Why is she awake at 3 a.m. and cranky the next day?
Right.
That's an impact search. So men look at impacts. And when in this survey, a lot of men said they felt the impact on them personally of the perimenopause and the menopause transition. And they also felt the impact on their relationship. So that's what they're going to research. That's two very different conversations.
Very.
When they bring this together, it's two very different perspectives of looking at the same thing. So that's important to understand, is a woman is experiencing these symptoms and a man is experiencing the impact of those symptoms. And so they've got to come together and understand, this is what this symptom means for me.
Right.
Then the man can understand, oh, okay, that's why it has this impact on me.
I think that's so important, because even, and I'll say it even for, women dealing with women too, that just in terms of like our lived experience is different. And, I sometimes have found it's like, well, you're like this because of, and it's like, no. Like this might actually have nothing to do with menopause. I might just be very abrupt today, or I might just not have slept well, or I'm just no longer available for that. That might have nothing to do with it. So it's like, it is that understanding of, I love that sit, listen, and believe. I think that belief piece is so powerful. I felt seen just by you even saying those 3 words, because our symptoms are different. How we show up is different. The core of who we are, like, again, as we evolve as human beings, but I'm not Amy because I'm going through surgical menopause and this change. I'm Amy with like this thing that's happening. And so I also don't want to be forgotten for who I am. I don't want this like perimenopause, menopause thing to become my identity. These are things that are happening to me. And I, Amy, regardless of these things, need to understand what these things are, just like you, Simon, as a partner, and Eric is my partner, or all the other people, is like, this is happening to you because of these circumstances. And so, you still have to be these two people, and you're kind of like Avengers on the like, how are we going to manage this whole thing? And if we're still trying to figure out our symptoms because we're so under-researched, and, every day you flip a page and it's like, oh, my shoulder hurts because it's frozen because that's menopause, then there's like all these things that become a list. And I want to be very sure, like even in my own relationship, that my list of things that are happening to me are not all of a sudden just like thrown into a bucket and we just carry around the menopause, perimenopause bucket as like, this is who you are now, if that makes any
Right.
sense.
No, it does. Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. Not everything is perimenopause. Not
Mm,
everything is the menopause transition. People can just have off days.
right?
And it's got nothing to do with
Right.
perimenopause. And it can become too simplistic for
Mm,
partners, especially, to say, oh, well, it's hormones.
right. That dismissal. Like sometimes it's
Yeah.
like, well, it's probably just that. And it's like, but sometimes I don't even want that to be an excuse, right? Like
Right.
it's not an excuse for behavior. I don't want to put a label on it. It's not just this like blanket now that at 35 years old, everything that happens from now into 60 all gets thrown in this basket either. It's like we've got to still, which is why I love your like sit, listen, and believe. Um, because when I tell you I'm just having a shit day, don't turn around and tell me it's because you're probably having a shit day because of, your hormones are out of whack. It's like, nope, just having a shit day. Someone stepped on my foot. Like, has nothing to do with that, right? Like, I might be feeling that my freaking best today, but then something happened, but has nothing to do with my health, right? Like, there's this.
Right.
I'm interested to watch, and you and I are in the field, and it's like I'm interested to watch and be a part of trying to keep the conversation, like finding that balance so that we don't go so like it has the potential to go this far, right? Like it has the potential to go either like, not paying attention at all to everything is always this. And so there's so much power in like the belief in terms of what's happening to you, and also finding for men and for women to understand how we understand and take in information. And that's something my husband and I are really good at. He's also a ferocious reader, and he's reading this book called It's a Guy Thing. And it's about, it's funny when you said the 5-minute thing, because Eric, in this book, it was, women go into a store to like shop and look around. Men go into a store to like find a thing. So why is your partner frustrated when you're just like wandering through a store? They actually don't understand why you're not there to buy a thing. And
Yep.
so, there's so much just in who we are as humans and as the sex we're living in and who we are and how we're identifying at the time is going to have a massive impact on how we go through this transition of life and evolution.
And I think that it's important that men realize this is a long-term learning experience. You know, anywhere from 4 to 10 years or longer. My wife has been in perimenopause for 10 years now and no signs of
Right.
coming out of perimenopause yet. So this has been a 10-year transition for our relationship. And that's a long time. That's right the way through her 40s. That we've been experiencing this transition and learning. And every day she shows up as a different person because she doesn't know. When
Right.
she wakes up in the morning, it depends on what her night was like.
Yep.
It depends on what pain she's in that morning, what her level of pain is, what's hurting. Is it just a headache? Okay,
Right.
take a couple of Advil. Fine. Is it this random hip pain that's shown up every now and then? Could be that.
Right.
So there's a lot for a man to adapt to.
Right.
But I think that what they need to realize is they've got time to adapt.
Right.
You don't have to adapt overnight.
Right.
Give yourself some grace
Right.
that you are going to adapt slowly, but they are going to adapt. And this comes back to this adaptation. It's also a time for the woman to adapt in her relationship. So, I was talking about shopping lists. This is a time for women to recognize it's time to step back, because it's impossible for a man to step in if she's still occupying that space.
Agreed.
So if she no longer wants to occupy that space, learn to step back and allow him the grace to make mistakes. Because maybe this is new experience for him. He's not going to load the dishwasher the way you do it,
Right.
being very simplistic.
Yeah.
But there's going to be things that will annoy you. try and step back away from those and let him learn, because you've got a long time to learn.
Right.
It's not, he has to learn it this week.
Right. I think that's so important. It's like we need to offer ourselves patience and grace on both sides, for ourselves personally and for our partners that we're choosing to go through this time with.
Yeah.
And I think that's so huge. Like when you're, you have to be a beginner and an expert all at the same time in life all the time. And so now you have to in this stage of life for all of us as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's
And I
crazy.
think that's really important for
Mhm.
couples to recognize that this isn't an overnight transition,
Right.
that this is going to be around for years, possibly a decade
Yeah.
or more.
Yeah.
And over that time, the experience is going to change because,
Mhm.
there's, depending on what you read, there's
Right.
100 different symptoms
Right.
for perimenopause and
Mhm.
the menopause transition. And so a woman can experience any or all or none or a
Mhm.
few or some on one day and some on another day. And that's going to change over the life of the transition.
Yeah.
And she's not going to be the same as she was 8 years ago. My wife isn't the same as she was. She's
Yeah.
not experiencing it the same as she was,
Right.
partly because she's very privileged
Mhm.
in that medically, MHT was an option for her.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so she's able now to um, experience things differently
Right.
because she's on MHT.
Right.
And we recognize that as a couple, that's a
Right.
privilege. Not every woman has that option or that access.
Right. And also, I agree. And when you do start to take the, the care of the doctor and the hormones and all that also doesn't change overnight. Some of those things, do. I know a lot of my girlfriends who went on estrogen and then within 2 weeks, they're like, oh my God, like the clouds parted in the thing. But then you go on progesterone and it keeps you tired. And, like everything takes time. And,
Hmm.
I love, like I said, the sit, listen, believe. And I feel like then the like bubble over that is like patience and
Hmm.
kindness for each of us, like for both sides, right? Like you need to have patience and kindness for me, and I need to have that for you. And I think that that's so important when so a man is like, oh my God, Simon, like what do I do? Like, where do you start? How, like you said, sharing information, where do you get involved in helping people?
So, so definitely come find me at the Quiet Transition.
Mhm.
I'm happy to help. And I write and I interview experts in the field.
Cool.
And so it's not just me and my
Right.
opinions, it's actually, grounded in science.
For sure.
Um, and then, I mean, I do consume a lot of medical and
Mhm.
clinical information through PubMed. I get a summary once a week that
Cool.
tells me all the latest research that's going on. So I read research papers. I'm not
Great.
suggesting the average man read research papers,
Right. That's why there's
but
you.
but there's yeah, and but there are some good reliable sources. And I think that's part of a man's education and educating himself.
Mhm.
And yes, it's very helpful for a woman to start the ball rolling.
Mhm.
Read something, pass that on, say, hey, this is something I read, this is useful. But
Mhm.
what I think is really important for men to realize is it's not their partner's place to educate them. The partner
Mm.
has enough going on and they're trying to educate themselves as well.
Right.
You can't rely on them to send you all the information. You get
Right.
this starter pack, then you need to roll with
Right.
it and start to look for yourself and find things that are relevant to you and your partner's experience. And that's where it comes back to that belief piece. So
Right.
some of the things you read and you hear are not going to be relevant because
Mhm.
that's not your partner's experience.
Right.
The way you're going to find that out is I read this. Does this apply to you? Is this
Right.
how you experience? No, that's not how I experience a
Right.
hot flash. Hot flashes for me are this.
Right.
You know, itchy skin is this. Itchy
Mhm.
ears is this.
Right.
Meat ick, my new favorite, meat ick,
What is that?
where a woman just cannot stand the thought, the sight, the sound of meat.
Oh.
Just
Huh.
not, no, just no. That's not
Wow.
happening, which changes the conversation around what's for dinner
Yeah.
dramatically. Now we're all vegan.
Yeah. That's so
um,
interesting that you say that. And I just sometimes I equate the experience hormonally to like what I went through. I was lucky enough to have babies and I was pregnant. And there was times where I like looked at chicken and went, "Oh my God, never in my life." So it's interesting.
yeah, it's a very similar, time of
Mm-hmm.
life. Pregnancy and postpartum
Mm-hmm.
is a similar, surge of
Yeah.
hormones and change of hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's the important piece is yes, go out, find this information,
Mm-hmm.
definitely educate yourself, but keep bringing it back to your partner. And
Yeah.
that's where that conversation can start, is
Mm-hmm.
just asking the right questions. And
Mm-hmm.
those right questions are, how does this impact you? I read
Mm-hmm.
this, I saw this, I listened to this. How's that feel for you? Is that something you
Yeah.
experience? And believe the fact when they say yes it is or no it isn't. Okay, no
Mm-hmm.
it isn't. I don't need that piece of information anymore. Set that to
Right.
one side, look for something else. Because that's really what you're trying to do is
Right.
bring the pieces together
Mm-hmm.
as part of your education and
Yeah, I think of
apply it.
like I think about if I was going to send Eric something when you're just in your, where where we talked about where like when men are trying to figure it out and the impact and women are like symptoms, it's helpful. I even think of like how can I be helpful too to say, hey Eric, I read this article because these three things popped out for me. Um this is lived experience for me, or I'm feeling these things, or and I happen to have an open dialogue with my husband about these things where some people may not. Um, but just as like a tip, maybe say like, this is why I liked it. I want to highlight this point. And then I would say on the boys' side of things, because it doesn't always happen, is ask the questions like you just said. Like say, hey, what like if I just forward you an article, a quick email back or a conversation would be like, what stood out for you?
Yeah,
Because it might
exactly.
be like it might be a sentence, and then we don't want to leave you guessing. Because if you're like, oh, again, everything's figure outable and you're like, oh, this is what it was. And then you're assuming this was my thing, right? Like
You're right.
we still have to uncover why that's of interest, I would think is a good place to
Yeah, and that's
start
where it comes
too.
back to that. It's got
Mm-hmm.
to keep coming back
Yeah.
to the lived experience. It has
Mm-hmm.
to keep coming back to that and understanding what this experience is like
Mm-hmm.
for your partner and what that means for you as a partner.
Right.
So, what adjustments are you going to have to make? Because the biggest adjustment, I think, the biggest adjustment I had to make was understanding that my partner, my wife, is not the same person every hour of the day. It can
Mm-hmm.
change hour by
Right.
hour. Or simply, the person she woke up as is not necessarily the person she's going to bed as
Mm-hmm.
because of
Right.
things that have happened during the day. And you
Right.
have to be able to allow for that, allow that grace.
Right. And I think it's also if we remember, you know, we love each other, and there's like if you're coming from a place of we are in love and I love you and support you and you love and support me, and we're going to lead with the understanding that I'm not going to wake up and be an asshole today just because I woke up to be an asshole. Like you kind of almost like need to remove that piece, because if we know our baseline is love and kindness and the desire to keep this relationship working, then to me that helps alleviate taking it personally. Not every time is it going to feel great, but if you always go back to we're starting from a place of love. Like I think of my friends who are it's dating, but when they get a K, or like you send your relationship, like you're texting and you get a K, like you can read into that letter however you want. But if you're coming from a place of like, we love each other, we're good, then that K is like, all right, I'm just going to give you some space. This isn't about
Hmm.
me. This isn't happening to me. It's happening to her. How can I help out? Just like if you wake up and you're not having a great day, how can I just, it's starting from a baseline. Like I think it's always like, hey, are we in this? All right, let's be in the mud, but let's know that we're always coming from a place of love. Like I'm not waking up one day to just hate you. Like I don't hate you,
Yeah.
right? Like I think
Yeah.
there's some of that needs to happen too, so that you're starting from like an even playing field.
Yeah, and I think it's important. You're talking there about having a social circle, and women quite often have those support systems.
Mm-hmm.
Men, as they age, typically
Mm-hmm.
decline in their support systems,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
their female partner becomes their support system.
Hmm.
So it's really important for women to understand that men probably aren't talking about this anywhere else outside of their own relationship. They're the person
Right.
they're talking to about this. They're not going to their male colleagues at work and saying, you know, my wife's going through this. Is your wife going through this? Does she experience this? How are
Right.
you coping with this? They're not having those conversations.
Right. Not yet. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so women probably are having those conversations. What's happening with you today? Or
Mm-hmm.
God, I had this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I know it's because of this, but I
Right.
hate him today.
Right.
So,
Right.
and you know, my wife has these happen and her friends talk her down. She
Right.
talks her friends down.
Yeah.
We talk about those things. Um, I'm very lucky in that her friends and some of her work colleagues who are in perimenopause understand the work I'm doing and
Mm-hmm.
are happy to talk to me through her.
Right.
So I get this broader exposure to what
Right.
women are going through, you know.
For
Um,
sure.
a funny experience happened the other day where one of the people that my wife works with, who is a senior exec at a multinational, said, I think I'm going to become a plumber.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just like, I'm going to give all of this up. I don't want this anymore.
Right.
I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to study to become a plumber, and I don't
Amazing.
have to deal with all of this.
Right.
Now, she didn't. Next
Right.
day, she was back in it,
Yep.
but that was her reaction that day.
Right.
Now, how does her husband or her male partner react to that
Right.
when she comes home and says, I'm done. I'm going to go
Yeah.
back to school and become a plumber?
How does he? What would you advise that gentleman who had his wife come home that said, I want to be a plumber?
Wait and see if she still wants to do it next week,
Got it. I
because she
like that.
probably doesn't. You know,
Right.
this is transitional,
Right. That's
you know.
hilarious. You
I,
bring up workplace, and I think
mm,
I'd love to have some of your insight and have a conversation about workplace, because there's men in the workplace and you may or may not be married. You may or may not, be into women. You may, or like, there's all of a sudden you're there with these women of various age and stage. And so how do you navigate that? Like, how are you working with men to navigate that right now?
so I think the first thing I remind everybody is, regardless of your age and gender, you know someone in the perimenopause or menopause transition.
Right.
You absolutely do. That's
Fair.
just a fact of life.
Yep.
So when you look at the people you're working with, know that
Mm-hmm.
somebody, maybe not all of them, but at
Right.
least somebody in that group that you work with, co-workers, people you manage, people who manage you,
Mm-hmm.
are in that transition.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing. Second thing is, it's an HR nightmare for most organizations because they don't have policies in place.
Yep.
They don't have training in place.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that men typically are navigating again on their
Mm-hmm.
own.
Mm-hmm.
So really, at this point, if there are no clear policies, if there are no clear guidelines for men to operate within, then it
Mm-hmm.
really has to come down to grace. It
Mm-hmm.
really does. It really has to come back to, there's a probability. And
Mm-hmm.
again, like you said earlier, don't assign this immediately.
Right.
Don't say, well, she must be in perimenopause
Right.
because she's
Right.
that age, and so therefore this is a hormone problem.
Right.
Don't assign it immediately. That shouldn't be your first assumption. But if you see a repetition in pattern, then understand that this, you know, so for example, brain fog
Mm-hmm.
within the workplace gets seen as a performance issue.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go there first.
Yeah.
That's not your go-to spot. This isn't necessarily a performance issue.
Right.
Look beyond that. Try and look for something that may be influencing that performance
Right.
issue
Right.
before you start putting people on pips.
Right. Right. And the brain fog, I mean, I know that from, like, that's one of the first things before you even know it's happening to yourself and you're forgetting things. And people are like, how could you have forgotten that? Great question. Like, I don't know either. I've never lost anything in my life. How? Like, I'm also trying to struggle with that, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that piece of grace. And how do you, and I think this is nuanced and we're still at the new stages of this, but how much do you lead with curiosity in the workplace in terms of like, where
That's
does that to
yeah.
me feels like so unbalanced and so uncomfortable right now. I think it's like, how much do we know, or maybe we can't, but how can men help influence this HR nightmare? Like, how can we be advocates for one
I
another?
think that that's absolutely the word, is advocate, is
Mm,
actually making noise
mm,
within your environment. And unfortunately, male voices are heard more than
mm,
female voices.
it's true.
That's just fact.
Hmm.
Um, and so you've got that voice. Use that voice.
Right.
Say, hey, look, this is something I'm experiencing.
Hmm.
I think this might be a reason.
Hmm.
We have no guidelines. We
Mm,
have no policies in place right now. Give me some guidelines.
right.
Tell me how I am supposed to handle my employee, my coworker, my manager
Hmm.
when they appear to be different,
Right.
very different.
Hmm.
And I think one of the other pieces that gets missed, and I talk about the ripples,
Hmm.
um, we can end up in this cycle of conflict
Mm,
with partners at home.
okay.
That doesn't stay at the front door for either partner.
Right.
So the male partner can take that to work, and then it becomes a game of
Mm,
kick the cat. It rolls down the hill until somebody is the cat and they get kicked.
right.
And one of the things I come back to all the time is people don't leave jobs, they leave managers.
Yes. Agreed.
And so when that manager changes, male or female,
Hmm.
because of this transition,
Hmm.
and nobody's looking at that bigger picture,
Right.
and certainly men are not in that picture at all within HR policies. HR policies are focused on women,
Hmm.
just as they are for maternity leave, and there's no paternity leave.
Right.
There needs to be a bigger conversation around men getting support around this transition because
Hmm.
it's going to impact them as well. If
Hmm.
their partner's awake at 3 a.m. in the morning, they're also coming to work groggy, impatient,
Hmm.
snappy, because
Hmm.
they've been up since 3 a.m.
Yeah. Well, and I think when you say ripple, like I even think of, if you're living in a situation at home that is frustrating, and obviously we can equate this to multiple things that are happening, but we're talking about this one is like, if you are dealing with perimenopause and menopause at home and you're having you have a limited view as most do right now until we continue to spread the word as we are, you have a limited view. So to your, like when you said ripple, I thought of like a man leaving home with, his preconceived notions of what a perimenopausal woman is, and then goes to work and just like then labels his colleague um the same. And all of a sudden now I might be 25 and you don't even know it. Like I'm nowhere even near, or I'm trying to get pregnant or whatever. But just that ripple effect of the cause and effect is like, if this is happening at home and this is my lived experience, then I'm going to go to work with this lived experience if we're not educating and helping and policies and procedures and, ultimately the education, that woman is just getting painted with the
Yeah.
same brush. Because when I said the word curiosity, I know you can't just be like, hey, Amy, are you going through perimenopause? Let's talk about that. Like, we're not comfortable enough in the workplace yet. Maybe we will, maybe we won't be. But,
Yeah.
um, it's just, to me, there's also that if you're having a shitty experience at home, man or woman, we're taking that into the workplace with all of that as well. And again, with the preconceived notions of what perimenopause, menopause has been like painted.
Yeah.
Because we've got to do a lot of uneducating people as well, I find, through this whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
we think of things we've said, like, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I might be having a moment, but I'm not crazy. There's something physiologically happening to me. So, like, don't ever say you're acting crazy. Like, we've seen it in movies and stuff, and like, you often end
Yeah.
up punched out. Like, these are things we'd rather not be having happen to our bodies. Like, it's hard enough for us in the workplace as it's been to even get to the places and spaces we are, and we're not even there yet. And now, the best thing for us is this education is coming out. But again, it's that pendulum. We want to make sure it doesn't, again, you just don't get like smudged with the same brush that like now if you're having a bad day or you don't like a suggestion or whatever, it's just, you're just this,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I mean, I think it's all too easy to do that, to put people in boxes.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a danger as
Mm-hmm.
we move into more education. And that's why I think it's really important for men to get well educated, not
Yeah.
just have lists of symptoms.
Right. I think that's so important. I could talk to you forever, Simon, and I am so grateful that you chose to do this for yourself, for your wife, for your partnership, for your marriage, and now for other couples and men. Because, we know this is a third of our lives. We want to be married and in love and, exist as healthy human beings as best we can. And I think the work that you're doing is next level. It's so important. And I know this episode itself will be passed around. And I know people are going to listen. So how does someone get a hold of you, find you? We'll put it in the show notes, but how does someone get a hold of you?
TheQuietTransition.com. That's the
Okay.
easiest way. That goes to my Substack,
Okay.
where I have podcast, I have
Great.
long form writing, short form writing, long form video, short form video.
Great.
It's the same on YouTube. So if
Okay.
people prefer to watch videos, I have short clips and
Great.
long videos. And then for couples, and you can put this in the show notes, but I
Yeah.
have a free guide
Amazing.
that's broken down by where you are on your journey
Mm.
and what resources are going to be most helpful for you on that stage of your journey.
I love that. Thank you. This has been enlightening and amazing and beautiful. And I look forward to supporting the work that you're doing to help
Thank you.
all men help us with this so we can help each other. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for getting loud with us today on the Down There Where podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never, ever miss an episode. And leave us a review. It would help us reach more women who've been told to suffer in silence. And here's the thing. Awareness isn't enough. We need action. We need funding. We need change. That's where the Down There Affair comes in. We're a global peer-to-peer fundraising movement putting menstrual health center stage, from menstruation to menopause and everything in between. Diseases affecting men receive twice the funding of those affecting women. Only 11% of research dollars go to women's health. We're here to change that. Visit downthereaware.org to register for our next walk, start fundraising, or join the movement. We can't do this alone. Oh, and follow us on social at the Down There Affair, because this conversation doesn't stop when the episode ends. Whether you're dealing with your own health journey, supporting someone who is, or ready to demand the care we all deserve, you're in the right place. Getting uncomfortable is where change happens, and we're never going back. I'm Amy Milne. Stay loud.
Oh, that was binge-worthy.